Stop! There are spoilers ahead. Mainly for Little Nightmares 1, 2, and maybe Very Little Nightmares. I'm not too sure fully as of yet, as recording this part of the video. But yeah, there's spoilers ahead. Be careful. Anyway, now carry on with the theory. Hello everyone and welcome to another Little Nightmares 2 theory video. And today, I want to dive straight into a theory. And I want to start off this video by holding you accountable. Yes, you the viewer, the player, admit it. As soon as you realized you needed to pick up that gun and hold it with 6, as soon as they aimed and fired, you tried to go back through the door to see his body. Just like you tried to get the camera to pan past the door after we chopped off the janitor's arms. It's okay, we all did it. But Little Nightmares, being the mystery that it is, knew what we were going to do. So they hid it from us. So today's question really is, and theory is, did the hunter survive the gunshot? And with the evidence that I think I have collected, I may have answered that. Let's theorize. You see, the hunter is a very unique character in many ways, but the most recognizable feature that he holds, aside from a few others, is that his house is full of taxidermy creatures. As we know, the hunter holds 4 people in his home: an old lady who lives in the attic, a teenage boy, and what we can assume to be are his parents, his mother and father. Or that's what the hunter has set them up to be. But their actual connection to the hunter is still up in the air. For all we know, it could well be just the family's house and the hunter has overtook it. Anyway, so before we talk about the hunter, and if he could have survived the shot, we need to talk more about the hunter and his appearance, and his behaviour and everything in between. So we know the hunter experiments with taxidermy, and not only on others, but himself. It's safe to assume this as we can see the condition of his own arm. This doesn't look to be just ripped cloth. It looks as if the hunter has tried repairing himself at some point. Which is interesting because we have 2 main questions with this. 1, how did he damage his arm? And how bad could that damage have been that he would have had to replace it completely? And 2, why did he stop halfway through? It would be plausible to think that he could have lost his arm in a hunting accident, which is rather funny if you think about it. And a small idea I had was perhaps he stopped fixing it because he could still feel the pain. But we can talk more about that in the future of this theory. Now let's move on. Another interesting thing about the hunter is that we see no skin or the body at all. It seems as if Tarzia and Bandai have gone through a lot of trouble keeping the hunter's face out of view and only leaving an eye hole which is just dark and there's nothing inside it. Kind of like my soul. Anyway, why is this? I do wonder if it's because over his time, he has acquired the same appearance as some of his taxidermied household members, and that his work is fading and becoming weak. Maybe the stitching's just not holding up anymore, and just simply not being able to hold up to his daily activities of hunting and being menacing. It seems the hunter is a mix between a taxidermy and a living person, and we can see characteristics from both sides. As we mentioned before, his appearance is a big indication of how he is part taxidermy, and to add to this, his movement is also something of a factor. It's not fluid like a human's movement. He moves as if he's constricted, and it's only as much as his stitching will let him. A human trait that we still see him hold are that of his sense of sound and memory. As we know, most of these scenarios in the wilderness chapter, often you can get caught if the hunter hears you and not only just sees you. And of course, the other is memory. I say this because of his ability to still hunt, and that he still has and holds that memory. He knows how to catch a prey and trap them and even lure them out. It looks like to be one of the only human sort of behaviors he retains and continues to do so. It's interesting, if you were to compare the hunter to that of the patients, we can see that the hunter has more life to him and less restrictions. And not to mention, one of the biggest indications of the human features, and that's his ability to breathe. We can see his cold breath when Mono's 6 are hiding from him down in the ditch. And on the other end of this with the patients, they're very stiff, still, and have to be activated somehow, where the hunter is just free to move however he can, whenever he wants. And thus, this leads me to the theory about the hunter, and if he survived the gunshot. I theorized that when the hunter meets the bullets, it's not the end for him. Let me explain. I think we have the same scenario as that of the janitor, and how while having his arms removed didn't kill him, just stopped the janitor in his tracks. I think this is the same story for the hunter. What I think happened is that when the shot is fired at the hunter, he gets hit in the stomach. We know it's the stomach on the account of the angle and height of the gun, or at a stretch I would say he got shot in the chest at least, so we know he got shot somewhere on his torso. I theorise that after he gets shot, he runs back to his house, and while in pain and somewhat immobilised, I believe he returns back into his home and begins work on fixing himself, the same way that he did with his arm. The bugger in all this is that we can't account for his movements. Because of how the scene is played out and programmed, the moment the bullet hits the hunter backs off the door, and thus we can't see him again. And if we take a look outside the normal camera, we can see that the mesh of the hunter despawns. I think the team at Bandai and Tarsia really wanted to leave this question up in the air, but I think with the evidence that we've been provided and from the history of Little Nightmares, we can safely assume that he is going to fix himself up with a little stitching and stuffing, and thus lose more of himself to this taxidermy hobby of his, and thus leaving the last human part of himself behind. And who knows, if there ever was a potential DLC, possibly we could end up running into the beast that has been created from too much taxidermying. Who knows? I must admit though, I would like to know, so if they could release a DLC, that would be great. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching